My name is Jin Young, and I was born in Manchuria in 1937. Manchuria was under Japanese occupation too at that time. And I went to school where all the teachers were Japanese. The memory I have is that every morning we would line up in the school ground, turn to the east, and did deep bowing to the emperor in Japan. That we did. And so I studied from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then Japan was defeated in 1945. So I was about 8 years old. When I first came to Korea, of course I spoke Korean, but I felt like an alien because I didn't know the way people acted and behaved in Seoul, Korea. Some of the children were not very nice. What I did was, okay, you guys don't like me and you guys sometimes bother me, but I'll show you. And I studied very hard. Within 1 year, I became the top student, and then they stopped bullying. So that's how I started. But within a few years, the Korean War broke out, as you know. When the war broke out, I was 13. I went out to the street and I saw people without shoes running down from the north. That was the beginning of the Korean War. I saw them, all adults and children, and I didn't know what was going on. Being a very conscientious student, I went to school, and there were the North Korean soldiers in the ground of the school. The teachers would say, you all go to a certain place and stay there. And I heard later that some of them were dragged off to join the Red Army. Those who were older than I was not old enough. I think during the Korean War, 2 words, fear and hunger. I tried to get food for my younger brothers and sisters. There were 6 of us. My mother had a baby during the war, and she couldn't feed the baby, so she died. Starved to death, the youngest sister. And my mother took her out. It was the winter time. After the war, my mother said that she didn't even remember where she buried her. One day, after the Korean War, we ate white rice for the first time in months and months. And that was really great. And so dark days of fear and hunger, and then somehow inside myself, I thought, this is going to end. Someday, this is going to be over. I think it's just a youthful hope and optimism. When the North Korean army came down, we didn't even know, so we just stayed in Seoul and suffered. But second time the Chinese soldiers came, everybody left Seoul. We experienced what the communists did, and everybody followed. Long lines of people, refugees. So we went down. And then the war ended in 1953. The schools reopened. So everybody, all trooped back to Seoul. And of course, we had to rebuild our life in Seoul, where no buildings were standing. But schools opened. After I graduated from Seoul National University, I was a reporter for the English newspaper. It was in the 1950s. I was selected by the Fulbright Commission, and the Fulbright Commission restarted its business after the Korean War. During the Korean, it was closed. and I was selected the first Korean Fulbrighter. And when you get a Fulbright Scholarship, you go to the States. And I went to the States as a graduate student to study at University of North Carolina. And it was in 1961 when I came. Because I majored in English and worked for the English newspaper, I had no problem with the language. Hearing, speaking, writing, no problem. So I really enjoyed my graduate days, really. But all the foreign students were supposed to have a physical examination. So, we went to the doctor. At that time, on the paper, there was a white, black, other. That was it. And you were supposed to check. And I looked at it. I'm neither white nor black. So I checked other. And the doctor looked at me, and he said that he raised the thing and checked white. And I said, I'm not white. I don't know why he did that. Later, we learned that Japanese and Koreans were considered honorary white or something like that. But anyway, I still wonder, why did he do that? I was definitely other. But he raised it and said, white. Is it for my sake? I don't know. After I got my master's, I was offered a part-time instructor in a small college in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then I taught at a college called Catawba, which is very well-known old college. There I taught about a year and a half, I think. And then in 1969, my husband decided to do his graduate work at Columbia. So we came up to New York in 1969, and he got his master's, and we decided to move to Michigan, where he did his doctoral work. And then as soon as he got his doctoral degree, Korean universities as well as Korean companies wanted him to go back to Korea to work for the country. They said Korea was rebuilding and the economy was going up, and they needed somebody like my husband. So we went back with 3 children and stayed there nearly 30 years. My husband, he was different from other Korean men. He was more open and honest. In North Carolina, foreign students from Africa were not allowed inside even McDonald's. They weren't allowed. There was one from South Africa, very famous journalist from South Africa. He got sick, he was in a hospital, but he wasn't allowed to go into any restaurant at all. And my husband went to McDonald's, bought the food, brought it to him every day for the person. So he was not just a big talker. He wasn't a big talker. And very concerned and manly in a way, very courageous. That's what I liked. And when I retired and my husband became seriously ill, he had diabetes and affected his kidneys. Yeah. So I came to New York to be near Caroline and Sharon, so we all could take care of him together. And he passed away. And ever since then, I have lived in New York, so I don't feel like an immigrant. Do I feel like a Korean or Korean American? More like Korean American. But I miss Korea. I do miss Korea, yeah. My mother influenced me the most. Even when we were growing up, she said that girls, women can do as much as anyone. So she paid actually more attention to me than to my brothers. You know, one thing that I remember still, it was right after the war and we were very poor, as everybody else at that time. And one day, we were going to school and she had nothing to prepare for the lunch. School, you know, we had to take lunch bento. She didn't have any rice to do that. Do you know what my mother said? You go to school without lunch, just go, she said. She said, your stomach may be empty and you will be hungry, but you go to school and learn, your brain will be rich. That's what she said. So go. So my mother was a firm believer in education, no matter what. And I still remember those words. You will be hungry, but your brains will not be hungry. That's what she said. And my mother was like that, and she was my biggest influence. My name is Jin Young. This is my Korean-American story.